Okay.
Right. Vadi, thank you very much for being here with us. I have not seen you for a long time. Vadi is one of my
Buddies.
buddies
Yeah.
from NUS days some time ago from the Faculty of Arts also.
European Studies.
And yes, we were in European Studies together. Even at that time, I remembered you were deeply involved in theatre and all that.
Yes, yes.
Can you roughly trace your interest in theatre and performance in general?
Okay, in
From
theatre, younger days, I should say that the age of 12 or 13, because due to my size, I was very big size, right? My brother had a drama, a theatre program he was doing. It was like a competition. So he needed a substitute because one of his friends fell ill. So he kind of asked me to come on stage and act. And that was my first experience on stage, I should say.
How old were you then?
That was like, I was 12 years old, 12, yeah. And that kind of kick-started the interest in theatre, in Tamil, I should say, firstly, because the kind of dialogue was written in actually literary Tamil, so it's very beautiful to listen to and very lyrical. So I kind of enjoyed performing that particular play. After that, I think I was roped into radio, because the radio at that time, they had something called they call it Sirvar Medai. That means it's theatre for youth, for children, for students. And I was one of the talents who was roped into doing that kind of plays. And it paid well, I should say, at that time. $30 a week was quite big money. And it was very good scripts. Some of the scripts were very good scripts. And that kind of kickstarted further interest in play itself, in theatre and drama. And again, apart from radio plays, what they did was they also actually had stage plays concurrently, using the students from the same cohort of group who were doing radio plays. And that kind of further kickstarted more interest in stage play. And I was thinking that, wow, okay, I can do performance. It's kind of enjoyable. And I also wanted to write. That kind of kickstarted the interest in writing for theatre also. And during my secondary school days, they had drama competition. Tanjong Katong Girls' School usually have this drama competition. And I used to write plays for that. And we used to group up with friends, from the same Tamil center. Previously, it was the Tamil center. Usually, Tamil is not within the curriculum. It was outside the curriculum. And they had a Tamil center where we had students from various schools coming and doing Tamil under one particular center. And there you got to meet various friends, a lot of friends from different schools. And most of them had interest in theatre also. And I had a chance of meeting Ravindran, who's a childhood friend. And he also likes to write plays. And at the age of 16, I was 17, and during junior college time when we were doing a play, we decided to do a play for the public, for the first time. It was no more school thing. It was really like going out, selling tickets to the public and staging a play. So we did it in 1988. And unfortunately, at the end of 1988, my friend Ravindran, he died. He passed away. And we decided to actually start this group under his name. It's called Ravindran Drama Group.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Ravindran, one of the founding members.
Yes, founding members. So that group has been staging consistently a lot of Tamil plays.
Yes.
And after that, for me, I think my interest grew. And I wanted to also do something like more like a professional theatre setup, rather than just doing amateur theatre. Because amateur theatre, you're not going to pay the artist. It's going to be very ad hoc, and people are coming there doing it for free and stuff like that. And so when I was plying my trade, I would say, in Ravindran Drama Group, I used to write plays. And one of the plays called Puyalgal, which was in Storms. It was basically about teenage gangsterism. And NAC picked up that play and they wanted me to do it under Young People's Theatre Festival. And that kind of gave me the recognition from NAC, I would say. And they were kind of earmarking me to do certain plays. And consistently I was doing plays, stage plays, in Tamil. And then I had a chance to do a play in English with the Substation. A play that I wrote in Tamil. Actually, it was Franz Kafka's The Trial. Actually adapted it and did it in Tamil. And Substation wanted something in English. So what I did was I retranslated it back to English, I would say. But because The Trial is actually a novel by Franz Kafka. Right. So it was a play adapted in Tamil. So I did it in English, actually, under the Raw Theatre Festival. And that kind of went down quite well with the audience. In fact, I had Germans in the audience who liked the play.
And when was this?
This was like 1995, 95, 96, yeah. Then after that, I kept on doing.
Was this during your time in NUS? Or just
Yes, it was. It was when I was in NUS actually. It was in '95, so I was still in NUS doing my honors here. Yeah, and prior to that, actually in '93, while I was in NUS, I did other plays by Franz Kafka also. I did On the Penal Colony.
That's right.
I did it as Andavarak, as in Tamil. And apart from that, I did Macbeth by, of course, Shakespeare's Macbeth, but it was a translated work.
Right.
This one I didn't write it. I actually directed the play.
Right.
And this Macbeth was translated by P. Krishnan. He's a cultural Malayalam actually in Singapore. And it was the closest translation you can ever get to Shakespeare. So I kind of fell in love with the language. And I directed that play, in fact. And coming back to the Franz Kafka's The Trial, when I was doing it in English for the Raw Theatre Festival under Substation, that's when actually NAC and other partners, they said, do more English plays also, you know. And for me at that time, I wanted to do Tamil plays because firstly there was a lack of Tamil theatre at that time, and Ravindran Drama Group was the one that was consistently putting up plays, and we were also introducing new rather than theatrical concepts. The presentation styles were changing. In fact, we were the first Tamil theatre group to actually use theatre in the round, the black box concept, to do a play. And after that, we were also challenging ourselves to do theatre, like street theatre. Of course, street theatre, they don't give us, a license to do it, because the government is not very much into street theatre per se, or foreign theatre. So at that time, what we did was, I wrote a play which was based on AIDS awareness, and worked with the Communicable Disease Center, and we did like a theatre in the round kind of a concept, but it was an open theatre concept. And that was quite well received because it was a street theatre element that was involved in it. But that was also in Tamil, yeah. Then, of course, I wanted to. I had this chance meeting, I would say, with William Teo. We were sharing a flight. I think it was a EU trip actually.
Right.
I was coming back, and that was the time I think I met him on the plane. And he asked me what are the kind of plays I was doing. So I was telling him that I'm doing Franz Kafka's The Trial on the Penal Colony, and like that. I was trying to be very uppity about the theatre I'm doing, doing all those European, based on European literature, right? And then I kind of asked him, what kind of theatre are you doing? What plays are you going to do? Then he said Mahabharata.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of you feel like, my God, I'm supposed to be doing Mahabharata, isn't it? And that kind of made me look inwards to look at what things are there for us to do, for me to do, as a Singaporean Tamil, right? A Tamil-speaking Singaporean. I should be doing something relating to our community and our society also, right? Yeah, all the while we've been doing plays along those lines, but it didn't occur to me that there are certain. Sorry, it didn't occur to me there are certain. I think culturally nuanced material that we can actually use, and that's when and I was sent to India. I must say, under Ministry of Manpower, I had secondment from MOE. I went to India, and my experience in India was that I felt more like a Singaporean rather than Indian, and that's when it started off a search for my own identity, I would say. And so when I came back from India, I actually went to do my master's in creative industries in Australia, and I had a chance to do a project there as part of my master's degree program. And I decided to research on Singaporean Tamils, the history and everything. And that's when I kind of came up with the idea of this Kalinga trilogy.
Right.
The Kalinga trilogy. Kalinga trilogy is basically, for me, it was basically covering about the Tamils history in Singapore, the Indians' history also as a whole, before the World War, after the Second World War, and then what happens, how the community has evolved and what they have done and stuff like that. Because for me it was a search, because as I said, when I went to India, I felt more a Singaporean than an Indian. So therefore, for me to find my own history, my own narrative, I wanted to search my history and present it on stage, so that everyone would understand. Because I want to do in English also, one of the main reasons was because I want it to reach out to the non-Tamil speaking audience. So they will know the contributions of the Singaporean Tamils, what they have done and their history, and also to make the community feel very proud of their roots here, you see. And that was one of the main reasons why I did that play. I started to write the play, Kalinga Trilogy. In fact, I wrote it as, the title was Kilenkia, right? The Kilenkia Trilogy, Part 1, Shanmugam, right? And of course, there was no connection with the minister, of course. Shanmugam is actually my father's name.
Right.
Nobody knew that. And what happened was there was an uproar among a very small section of the community who said that Kilenkia is a very pejorative term, you don't know the history, and they kind of tried to, I would say, even send out hitmen for my stage manager. Became quite serious. They said that, we shouldn't do it. They were trying to harass, they were trying to harass, literally harass and stop the production. Yeah, and even it came on the paper, Straight Times finally, and I said that, I will change the title if they want to. I mean, for me, it's the information that I want to say.
Yes.
And it was good publicity, in fact, thanks to the harassment, it was a sold out performance. And then people realized what I was trying to do, you see, what I was trying to say. You see, just giving you an example, in Australia, my pronunciation is that queer, Q-U-E-R, queer, right? Yeah. They used to call the gay community as queer, right?
Yeah.
But today, the Australian gay community have adopted that name, right? And it is no more pejorative. It is their identity, isn't it? Yeah. So my idea of coming up with this killing, the experience for me, why I wanted to bring up this idea was because if you were to look at even straight settlements documents in the 1800s, right? There was never a classification of Indians. There was only a classification of Bengalis. There was killing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they don't realize, these people don't realize, it was a name given. You see, just because some of them had some negative experiences, doesn't make it to be that. You see what exactly that word means. And my experience then was, for example, I found...
We used that quite a lot when we were young.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, it may have started off as a pejorative term, but the roots, if you go back to the roots, it wasn't. And the best part was, my experience was, I found a wallet, thick weight of money there, about thousands of dollars, okay? And I knew that person was staying nearby in Tampines. So I went to the house to pass it to them personally because their address was there and everything. And the woman was so happy, it was a Chinese lady. She was like profusely thanking me. And she rushed to the phone and she picked up the phone. She's calling her husband and she's saying, in such emotional way, she's saying, Killing, this Killing. I can hear she's telling this Killing has come and given this wallet. At that time I was thinking, how dare she calls me Killing? Then I realized, no, it's not like she's, it's a pejorative term, it's the identity, you see, that's how they name you as such. And
it's like Ang Mo, I mean, some people call it pejorative,
exactly,
but
it's not really, exactly. So that was my search, you see, for the Kalinga trilogy. That was my search. Finally I changed it to Kalinga trilogy, because I went to the minister and Minister Dharman.
This reached the minister?
Yeah, I went up to very high level. So I went to see the minister, and the minister Dharman said that, buddy, change it to Kalinga trilogy. I was happy, okay, so I changed it to Kalinga, because the history also has, the Killing actually comes from Kalinga also.
Right.
There are 3 tracks to the history, you see. So I was very happy that, I was changing it, and yeah, it went out fine. So again, through that play, I was trying to search for my history, a narrative for myself, because I want to find my existence in this multiracial society, right? And if I were to do it in Tamil, I would have reached out only to my Tamil community. But by doing it in English, I was also showcasing the history of the Tamils to the bigger group, to the wider group, which I want to. Because I think today there is a lack of, I should say, identification of each community, or a lack of, I won't say understanding, more of knowing what's happening in the other community. You see,
it's increasingly so in the last 10 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the lines are very clear.
Very clear. The silos, yeah. unnecessarily there are silos created, whether it's Chinese, Malays or Indians. Indians itself, I don't buy the categorization because it has a historical baggage there. And this is like a colonial baggage, when you see the silos. Frankly speaking, I would say that Straits Times used to have this page called community page.
Yes.
Now this community page actually highlighted things done by the Malay community, the Tamil community, or the other communities, and somehow any English paper buyer would be able to just read about it,
That's right. That's right.
and there was some connection.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel that for the past couple of years, this connection has been so separated, which is wrong, I think.
It used to be also in live, you can see what the other groups are doing
Exactly.
across languages and all, but that's disappearing.
Yeah.
Anthologies of work also, there used to be a lot of this kind of cross
Sharing and
yes.
and it's disappearing, and I'm kind of worried about it. Why? Because for me, a Singaporean identity was created by those exchange, and that is somehow, for me, is disappearing.
What do you think gets forgotten when these things disappear?
Okay, when these things disappear, what happens is you don't know what's happening in the other community, and that's very sad, because then you start to live in your own community, and maybe ghetto communities might evolve, or even stereotypical views might become very stronger.
Right.
I think when there is no sharing and when there is no connection between the community, these things can become dangerous. I think so.
Increases racism.
Yeah, very
all
much.
This kind of
Yeah.
wrong views of other people.
Definitely, because I always, recently, just an example I'm telling you, I've been telling this to many people, this example. During a Meet the People session,
Right.
MP, he's a Chinese, he's trying to communicate with an old Chinese lady, and she's Hokkien, right? And he cannot communicate with her, so he's asking his assistants to communicate, and that guy also cannot communicate with her.
You mean to speak in dialect?
In dialect, yeah, the Hokkien thing.
Okay.
So that, of course, it's a mismatch, right?
Right.
An Indian lady who's actually a janitor who's helping in the cleaning in that particular CC.
And she can do it.
She comes there, yeah, she talks to that old lady in pure Hokkien, and she's explaining that in Malay to the other guy so that the MP can understand. You see, what happened to the generation?
Yes.
The creation of the kampong spirit, the creation of a I'm not looking for a melting pot, but that exchange, that the idea of we being one people, surprisingly, when I think Lee Kuan Yew was angry with the words Malaysia for Malaysians and not for the Malays. How come Singapore is not for Singaporeans, but somehow it has been, CMIO? Yeah. So for me, as an artist, right, I feel very strongly about this because I'm a Singaporean first.
Right.
I don't even see myself as an Indian, you see. I always say that Indian is a nationality. I'm a Singaporean. So my artwork, whatever I do, my work on stage, I always want to bring this element of Singaporeanness, this element of togetherness, the element of our history, our past, our narrative, how we were, and the charm of it, I always feel that. And I think one of the inspiration was Taha Benjaloun, who was here for one of the talks, a Moroccan writer. He said, art can be for the sake of art or for the sake of saying something, for the social, economic realities of the society, and you want to say something, isn't it? And I feel that is the art that I want to do. And in a way, even when I did Titus Andronicus in Tamil, with the help of a friend, we translated it. And for me, Titus Andronicus has universal themes. It has a theme of revenge. It even had themes of togetherness, working of differences together. And so I was trying to promote this kind of elements within the play also. And Shakespeare has this some element of racism in the whole Titus Andronicus about the black guy and stuff like that. I purposely converted into a white guy, and how the other community was against this white. What are the things? I mean, for me, this is interesting as an artist because it gives me the artistic license to do what I want and what I want to say. And I think theatre provides me that platform to say things. And in that sense, I'm hoping that it can create awareness and also an intellectual discussion about the issues that I'm bringing out.
How has the other communities responded to your work? when you do this?
I was very pleasantly surprised when the first Kalinga trilogy was actually nominated for Best Script for the Live Theatre Awards. And yeah, and that kind of gave me quite a good recognition. People really wanted to see my next work. And that was good because the person who wrote a review of the play actually talked about Kalinga as how being, wrongly interpreted by people and stuff like that. And it was good for me because it kind of reached out to the wider audience, you see. People who have read the review, they would know what exactly it meant, you see, and what I was trying to say.
Social discussions about
yes, definitely.
and all that.
On the internet especially, and I saw some blogs, and even it reached out to all the way up to Malaysia.
Right.
But they were talking about the play in Singapore, about Kalinga and Kelengkia. Because in Malaysia, they also had this problem with this word Keling.
I think they're still using it
yeah,
very
they're
strongly
using,
in ways that we don't now.
But finally, in fact, a court order, in fact, there is a case on that particular issue. The court has finally said it is not a pejorative term. It is just a term indicative of a, and I was very pleasantly surprised. A construction worker, an engineer here in Singapore, this play I did like a couple of years back, right? And he comes up to me like 5 years later after the play. He shook my hands and he said that, sir, I just want to tell you about the thing that you did, the play, and you tried to talk about this word Keling, and it's happened in Malaysia. And he told me, this whole this discussion that has already happened in Keling, in Malaysia itself. It was very interesting because it had reached out, and the effect was far-reaching, and that was what I wanted out of the play, because I think whenever you want to do something, whenever you want to create something as a creator, for me, it must not stop at the stage.
Right.
It should go out.
Right.
It should reach out. It should create discussion. It should, in a way, engender different viewpoints. I don't care that you have to agree with me or not. That's not the thing. But talk about it. It's an issue. It's a live issue, right?
We talked about how your ideas cross ethnic boundaries, cross national boundaries. How about within the Indian community itself? Are there lines that need to be taken down? Need to be questioned?
Yeah, I think within the community, I think there are a lot of issues.
Yes.
There are a lot of issues. One thing that I can just talk about is this idea of minority syndrome. Right. The issue of minority syndrome. Why I want to talk about that is because minority syndrome is an issue of numbers games. It's a numbers game, That's what I feel. I always never consider myself as a minority because I tell people I'm a Singaporean. How can a Singaporean be a minority in Singapore? Isn't it? Only when I define myself as an Indian, I have a problem, isn't it? Then you play the numbers game. You say, oh, there are only 3% of you. There's only 4% of you, Don't tell me that. I'm a Singaporean, full stop. I take the pledge. I say, regardless of race, language, or religion, right? Obviously, recently, LKY said that it's a utopia, right? It's something that it's aspirational. Which I don't quite agree with him. I don't quite agree with him. I don't. I feel that for more than 30 years taking the pledge as a teacher and a student,
it has to be more than aspiration.
It is. Yeah, it is definitely more than an aspiration. And I feel we are a nation who can create the utopia, and we were creating the utopia. Pockets of utopia is there in Singapore. You cannot deny that. It's just that sometimes political realities can create those silos which further divide the people, and it's something that we have to be mindful of, I think, and I think we should talk down on these things rather than accepting it, and sometimes mainstream media also perpetuates this idea of this four races syndrome. I just don't buy it. I tell myself I'm a Singaporean, full stop. Stop giving me other identities. I'm a Singaporean who speak Tamil, right? So what does that got to do with me being an Indian, And this feeling became more stronger when I was sent to India to set up an office there, because I felt more Singaporean than Indian. Because I think I've shared this with many people. A community is created by shared memories.
Yes.
If I talk to a Chinese guy in Singapore, okay, Singaporean Chinese, I tell him, hey, Fandi is good. He can say, no lah, Sundram is better lah. If I were to say the same thing to an Indian guy in India,
totally clueless.
Clueless, isn't it?
No idea what references refer to.
Exactly. And if I were to talk to a Malay Singaporean, okay, I'm going to tell him, hey, Lau Pasat or some other the satay club, that time, wow, very good, you know, can you take that away from me? Can you take that away from the other Singaporean? You can't. That is our shared memory, isn't it? And that was a Singaporean identity that was evolving. Unfortunately, I feel that there are certain things that are happening today which is trying to create the demarcation, and the demarcation is becoming strong, and the younger generation somehow is now looking towards that definition, you know, rather than feeling Singaporean, you know.
They fall into the classification.
Yeah, they fall into the trap, and they're now looking at pan-Indian kind of a grouping, or pan-Chinese kind of grouping, you know, which is sad for me, because I come from
away from the center that is Singapore, right?
Yeah, very much.
But then I have to ask you, I mean, you did also, I mean, when you're talking about Indian communities seem to have moved away from the language issue. You work in Tamil specifically.
Yes.
Does that create issues also for you?
Well, it doesn't, because obviously my initial market was from the Tamil community. So I was able to reach out to them very well. But when I do it in English, my market becomes broader. And in that sense, I'm also, I would say, not say careful, but mindful of the fact that it is reaching out to a wider audience. And the way I write, sometimes I try to tap on universal themes and also particular themes also. For example, a play that I wrote called Where, just for a Singapore Youth Festival. There were a Chinese boy, a Malay boy, an Indian boy, and another Chinese girl, all going on, traveling in a car. And you can see the Indian guy coming out and talking about his situation in Singapore, how he was embroiled in a gang fight, and they decided to join a gang and blah, 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 this and that. So it was sometimes a bit particular to the community, but at the same time, if you put it to look into a wider perspective, it kind of covers the whole Singapore milieu of things that's happening. So as a writer, that's what I'm mindful of when I do English plays. For example, there was another play that I did for Singapore Youth Festival called Sisters. Now, Sisters was tapping on the history of Singapore from the 65 and from a post-war period, because about 400 Chinese girls, especially girls, were actually adopted by Indian families. So there are a lot of this lineage in Singapore, in fact, and they were adopted by the Indian family because during the wartime, of course, the parents were decimated, or usually they didn't want girl, child, so they kind of give away. And some of the Indian families actually adopted them. And this story about Sisters was about an Indian lady reminiscing about a Chinese sister she had. But after the war period, what happened? The mother comes and collect the baby, and then after that, collect the child. And so I just wanted to see how that nexus between the Tamil-speaking lady, more like a Malayali lady, and she's looking forward for her sister, and later they kind of meet at the end of the day, and when the play ended with them hugging each other and calling sisters, right? For me, it was reality, because that was a true Singaporean story. It actually had happened, you know. They were separated when they were young, and she was Chinese. This was a Tamil-speaking woman, but the Chinese lady still remembered a lot of Tamil's words and everything, and they finally, found each other after so many years, right? And it was based on a neighborhood in Singapore where, the flat is built such a way that sometimes you don't even know who your neighbors are. So I kind of placed it in a very Singaporean context and tapping on the historical context also, to say that there was so much of sharing that took place between the communities, There's so much of bond that has taken place, But somehow this is not in the open. There were so many Indians who got into trouble with the Japanese because they hid the Chinese men in their house. There's so many stories of that sort, So, but that doesn't really come out. So in fact, the Kalinga trilogy was about that, about how the community was so strong. They were together for each other. There was never a consideration like, oh, that person is Chinese, this person is Indian, or that sort. They were like, that was my friend Chun Peng, this is my friend, Zayed, and they lived together. So for me, that is something that I hold dear to my heart. And whenever I do my plays, whether in English or Tamil, I try to bring in characters of different races, and to show that how we, as a community, we have a narrative, very strong narratives that we have. and it is not just particularly Chinese, particularly Indian, or particularly Malay. So much of sharing that's taking place between the community. And
it sounds like your work definitely has what you already pointed out earlier, a kind of a utopian goal. You do see it doing something, writing, directing, performing. What does the arts mean to you? Does it really is it really something that can make the world better?
Yes, I sincerely feel arts actually makes the human being more human. I really feel that sincerely, because whether it's a cathartic process that you go through when you see it from the audience point of view, or when you're doing the play, you are trying to actually perpetuate good values, good ideas, and why that play is being staged, among the actors and directors and the stage crew and everyone. So it's a two-way process. There's a lot of sharing that's taking place, and I think there's also a level of intellectualization of issues. When you intellectualize certain things, you make a person think about these things, and when a person thinks about these things, I hope he becomes a better person.
And not necessarily in abstract, because you have specific examples with narratives.
Yes, definitely not in abstract. I think, okay, for the aesthetic value, yes. To sometimes, without art, I don't think so a human being can survive just by number crunching and staying at home, and you still have to watch TV. TV itself is another medium of art. It's entertainment, but at the same time, theatre for me brings you to the next level. It's not just entertainment. There's an avenue there for you to make the person think. And I think that's what art for me is. For a lot of people, art is just for the sake of art, as in for aesthetic reasons. I'm fine with that. I mean, sometimes you need that, right? The beauty of it, or the entertainment of the wow effect, fine. But for me, you have to bring back something after watching it. For me, you have to go to the next level. It's not just art for the sake of art, but a bit of, thinking, humanity.
The thinking for you seems to link more to, as you pointed out, humanity, human values, and to feel your humanness, as opposed to just pure abstract or even academic kind of directing. So your constructing of a utopia is of a specific kind, right? It's more, it's closer to a sense of community. Is that the basis for nation building for you? Okay.
Rather than creating a utopia, sometimes I'm revisiting elements that are now called utopia. I want to bring back the narrative, the history, to show that there were so many things that were already happening, which somehow is missing now. So maybe by showcasing history, I'm trying to say utopia was there, you lost it, get it back. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying that.
Are you cynical?
I wouldn't say I'm cynical, but I sincerely feel that I'm sad. You see, I'm sad when someone tells me that I'm an Indian, rather than calling me a Singaporean. I'm sad because my shared memories is with Singaporeans here, and it's not like don't silo me into a racial classification. So that, in fact, makes me sad, and that is why I want to do more things to showcase elements that were there, that brought us together, the community spirit and everything, so that they will know. I'm not being cynical in that sense, isn't it? I'm just trying to showcase, hey, we were this, how come we forgot, right?
I think to do something already spells out that you're not cynical. But the point is that what I'm asking is more rather, do you feel like you are letting yourself slip there? Are you trying to arrest those kind of feelings to stop yourself becoming like that?
Okay. Maybe I'm trying to do this so that I can satisfy myself, and also create an identity for myself. Maybe the search is for the identity. You see, when you get older, you start to ask yourself, who am I? Isn't it? And how do you put yourself in the society? How do you see yourself in the society, in the community? If you have served national service, you have taught so many years in schools, you have said the pledge for so many years, you have friends and you have family, and you want to make this as your base, you want to root yourself here because so much of history here. But when you see some friends leaving the country, And when people say, oh, it's becoming more racial silo, this country is not really what it was, used to be. Oh, there's now 37% foreigners in the country, 1 out of 4% is a foreigner. We are losing the identity, and suddenly people saying that this is not a country, it's a city. When these things all come about, right, you start to wonder, hey, wait a minute, why are you taking this away from me? This is my identity, this is me. I'm a Singaporean, I've gone through this education system, right? I've done my national service, and I've been teaching national education. I've been interacting with students of all races, and I've been enjoying myself with them in terms of, educating them or doing theater with them and everything. And suddenly, powers, beyond me are trying to tell me that, oh, this is a, city, this is not a country, and we are still thinking along silos of this and that. I feel it's wrong. I just feel that it's not right, and I'm just making noise in my own way. I'm just trying to say, hey, listen, because I think there are a lot of people who believe or see the things the way I see it. There are a lot of friends who do that, you see, and I don't want to take what the mainstream media is telling me as being the gospel truth, because I feel there are a lot of Singaporeans out there who believe and who think that this country is special, this country is theirs, and we have a history, and we have a beautiful narrative, and we can achieve what other countries cannot. Yes, we have very special status. That's what I feel. Yeah.
I think of a lot of all the Singaporean literary celebrities, you are definitely one who is most, or among those who are most in touch with the youth of today. Why is that so? Is this because you want to bring this to them as well?
Okay, I'm in touch with the youth. One of the reasons is because when I was teaching in schools, right? Of course, I'm always mixing around with youths, and on top of that, I do a lot of TV programs. So the TV programs also, some of the programs were very youth-related programs. So they kind of identify me with the program, and sometimes they like some of the characters that I do. And so some of the institutions like SINDA, they ask me to do, like, for example, talk sessions with them and stuff like that, where for IT students and stuff like that, where I can really communicate with them. They think that I can talk to them, the language that they speak. Yes. And I hope I can speak that language, and I hope I'm making a difference. I don't know, but I'm having fun with them. At the same time, I'm not trying to mold the youth or anything. I'm just trying to make them see what is the truth. Because I feel some of the youths, especially in the Indian community, they sometimes fall into the trap of seeing themselves as being the minority.
Right.
Seeing themselves as being voiceless. Yeah, and that is wrong. I'm telling them, hey, your history is huge in this country, And Singapore, the truth of the word Singapore itself is a Tamil word, And many people don't even realize it's a Tamil word. And I say that, be proud of your country. This is your country. You're Singaporeans, Take the cue from what's happening around the world. Try to do, the best in your country. And be part of the community, Don't try to segregate yourself just because someone else is telling you to, segregate yourself. And I think that is something that I want to spread to the youth. And I think confidence is very important amongst the youth, right? If it reaches out to them that, hey, this is their country, they're proud of it, everyone is their friends, and I think it is better for Singapore as a whole. The idea of creating the HDB rule of 3% in one flat and blah, 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 the idea was to stop creating a ghetto community, isn't it? Now, if you have a community which is not confident, which is already thinking is a minority, and if it falls into the trap that they can't be anything better than what the, powers beyond them is telling them, they react accordingly. It's going to be a vicious circle, isn't it? So I think that is something that I want to do it for Singapore as a whole, not for, just for the Indian community. I, in fact, talk to the Malay friends and Chinese friends also in schools, and I've been giving some motivational talks for across the board, not just for the Indian community. So I just want to make sure that everyone works together, and be proud of this country. Yeah, it is not just directed just to the Indian community, but I'm able to communicate to them because of the fact that I appear on TV.
Are there other social concerns you have in your work? I'm thinking of perhaps do you deal with issues of poverty?
Yes.
Issues of education and all that?
Yes, I actually do touch on issues of poverty. Sinda sometimes asks me to talk to some, I would say, less privileged students. And I use the so-called celebrity element and try to talk to them about the fact that, poverty is just a state of the mind sometimes. There are a lot of help out there in Singapore. If you help yourself, you can help others, later. And that has really spurred some sort of, I would say, not a movement, but people are, really getting into the mode that poverty shouldn't be something that stifle them. In terms of education, for example, Singapore Poly asked me to come and talk about script writing for students, and you're trying to inspire students to write and stuff like that. So along those lines also, I've done such motivational talks or introduction talks and stuff like that. And I think that in a way allows me to be in touch with the youth to a certain extent, to be able to talk to them because of the fact that the popularity that the TV gives me.
How do you differentiate your work on television from your work on theatre, on the stage?
Very simple. The difference is you get money for TV, you get no money for theatre.
So one pays for the other.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So, in fact, when I was doing my law studies, in fact, I wrote 2 television series, and that kind of helped me to tide over some of the fees issues that I had. So, in fact, TV series writing is quite painful because you must keep in mind that it's for TV and it has to be pacey and it has to hook on the audience and everything of that sort. Because in theatre you can do your own. It's like sometimes intellectual, for a lack of, but okay. I mean, it's you are on your own, right? You want to do things on your own. But for TV you have to have a certain structure to it.
Right.
So I was lucky because when I did my masters in creative industries in Australia, it kind of allowed me to dabble with theatre, script writing, TV, film, everything. And so for me, doing the switch wasn't that difficult to write for TV series. And prior to that, in 2000 itself, I had some experiences writing for TV, teleseries and stuff like that.
You've done a lot of things other than just television, stage. You're also a teacher in economics, and now law. What is it that makes you so interested in so many areas?
Okay, that's a very good question. They asked me that I'm like a butterfly trying to fly all over the place. Okay, my first interest was because theatre at that time I didn't think it as if being a money-making job. For me it was passion. But if I wanted to do a proper job, a career, I wanted to be a lawyer actually. But of course, NUS didn't give me the chance when I applied for law. After the interview, they said that I'm talking too much, so they gave me European studies.
Don't they?
And then, I actually talked about David Marshall's trial, so I don't know whether that was the reason, but I didn't get to do law in NUS.
Oh, you come the long way.
Yeah, very long way.
The cynic way.
There's a big story behind it because while I was teaching, someone approached me for help and about her particular family situation, and I realized, and this was a stranger, complete stranger, calling me and asking me for help, and they thought that I was like another TV celebrity who passed away, who was a lawyer, and that I could help them, thinking that I was a lawyer. So I said I was a teacher, but I kind of hooked up with some of with Cinda, and Cinda can finally help them, and it kind of made me think that I've always wanted to do law. Why not just take it on the side and do it part-time? So I actually enrolled as a part-time law course in Stansfield, University of London. And at that time, they actually introduced this JD program.
Right.
So I was, like on the brink of decision, I would say. I don't know whether to do it full-time or part-time. So I just took the plunge and I just said, let's do it full-time. Let's have a career switch. So I jumped at it. So right now I'm doing law, but during this time I think I took a hiatus. I didn't do much of any plays.
Right.
I did only one this year for charity, one play that I did. Yeah, and hopefully next year I can get back into my writing mode again.
Are there exchanges? I mean, do most of the things you do in your day life affect your writing?
Yeah, I think it does because. When I was in junior college, when I was teaching there, a lot of things inspired me. I could see certain things through the students, and I wanted to actually tell stories that will reflect those realities that the students were actually exhibiting. Today, when I'm doing law, I'm looking at so many things that's happening and how the law works, and how law itself can be enhancing, at times can be restricting. And those kind of things are very interesting, because those are going to be my new material for my next
Yes,
play,
definitely.
I would say. Yeah, there's always an exchange, I think.
Can you see it right now? Or
Yeah,
roughly idea of something legal, perhaps?
Yeah, it's already running through my mind, actually. I'm seriously reading Kiss of a Spider Woman at the moment, and I'm looking at interesting things over there.
Okay.
In section 377A.
Are you going to touch on that?
Maybe, I don't know. I hope something they're going to have a judgment soon about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see what happens.
I mean, as a closing question, I maybe want to ask you something in abstract. What do you think is literature or performance's role in life? What is the connection between these things and this idea of life that we seem to always think about elusively in Singapore?
I read this somewhere. I'm just sharing this with you. I don't know where I read it. A creator, a person who creates things for the stage, he's like God. You get a chance to play with the lives on stage, and you are saying something through the stage to the people, and you are trying to make a statement. And then I think that at that moment the creator becomes God. And that's a very, I think, a very arrogant look at the way that you're doing things. But it sure gives me that kind of a grandeur feeling that I'm doing something and everything is under my control. And I decide what happens to the other guy's life. And through that, I want to say something to the people, not to manipulate them, to make them think. And I think that's what literature and performance is for me. It's a very powerful medium, a humanizing medium. That's what I would say. Yeah.